Hi guys. So I got a lot of requests on asking me to explain how I prepared for CAT, and so I will be doing this section wise. So I'll be making 3 separate videos for VARC, LRDI and quantitative aptitude. So please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned, right? So today I will be discussing how I improved my score in VARC, that is verbal ability and reading comprehension section. Okay, so a little bit of background about myself. So my name is Yugesh. I got 97.56 percentile in the VARC section. I'm from the state of Karnataka, and I do not usually speak English with my friends and family. So since I'm from Karnataka, the state language is Kannada, and I usually converse with friends in Kannada and my family in Telugu. So I'm pretty sure the situation is the same with many people, say in North India, East, West, South. So many of us usually converse in our state language and are proud of our state language, and we only converse with people in English when it's like a formal meeting or when we have to speak in English, right? So many of us, the command of our language in English is not very great, right? Me included. So I only started preparing for English seriously in my second attempt, right? So my first attempt I got 92.54, and I must confess that majority of the marks I got in CAT 2018 was by fluke, right? So what I did was I would choose an answer which I thought was appropriate in CAT 2018, and somehow luckily I got 92.54 while I was expecting something even lower, right? So how did I improve from 92.54 to 97.56 when my English was very weak starting out, right? So I will explain to you the resources I used and what I did with each resource, right? So many of you have been asking me for what resources I used to study for the VARC section, and this I can guarantee you will improve your percentile, right? You will not see a jump in percentile. You will see a gradual change in percentile, and eventually, before you know it, say in 3 to 4 months, you will be getting around 95 to 96 percentile, right? So let me explain to you what are the resources I used. So the first resource I used is the Time RC book. So the Time, which is a coaching center, has its own RC books that it gives out, and these RC books are extremely good, right? So they have more than a collection of 20 RCs from easy to difficult, and they have the questions and the solutions given at the back, right? So this book was greatly helpful. So every day I would make it a point to solve 2 RCs, right, to the best of my ability, and that was something that greatly impacted my score, right? The second one is the Time VA book, right? So when you go to verbal ability, there are 3 sections: para jumbles, para summary, and odd man out, right? So in verbal ability, it's all about practice, right? You have to practice as many questions as you can in order to score the maximum score in verbal ability, right? Okay, so if you look at para summary, right? So para summary is a type of question where you can only answer it if you have a good command over the language, right? So if you are able to understand in depth whatever you read, you will be good in para summary. And in odd man out and para jumbles, it's all about practice. You need to keep practicing in order to get better. And believe me, I have solved more than 100 questions in para jumbles and odd man out each in order to get just average marks in CAT, right? So suppose there are 4 para jumbles, right? After solving more than 100 para jumbles, I was able to, on average, solve around 2 to 3 para jumbles out of 4. And for odd man out, I was able to solve 3 out of 3 in most of the cases, right? So you have to practice, and I think Time, the reading comprehension book, and the Time verbal ability book are very good for this, right? So it's all about practice, practice, practice. The third resource is the Arun Sharma books for VARC, right? So the Arun Sharma book is also a good resource to practice. It does have a lot of helpful tips. So if you are thinking of buying Arun Sharma for VARC, it is a good idea and it is helpful, right? The fourth and the most important resource for practicing and learning reading comprehension and verbal ability are mock tests, right? So if you are giving CAT, you should give at least 30 mock tests, right? So if you are giving mock tests each in the VARC section, you will solve it under a time constraint, that is 1 hour, and you have to analyze your mock test, right? So when I say analyze, say for the VARC section, right, you have to go through the verbal ability section, right? You have to see where you are going wrong, which of these 3 type of questions is your weakness, right? Where you think you should be able to improve to do your best, right? So that is one thing. And the second thing is that you should be able to understand like what type of RCs are your weakness, right? So when I say what type, so reading comprehension comes in many types, right? So there may be a reading comprehension about science, there may be a reading comprehension about the economy, there might be a reading passage about space, there might be a reading passage about psychology, humanities, any topic, right? So there will be a certain topic which you do not like, and there will be a certain topic that genuinely interests you and you want to read about it, right? So for me, example, I hated reading passages on psychology, right? The vocabulary and the sentence structure was very complex for me to understand the passage, and so I would often leave the passage, right? So when you solve mock tests, you understand what type of passages to target and what type of passages you can either solve at the end or leave, right? So that is one very important input you can get from your mock test, right? And the second thing, as I said, is like to know which of these 3 sections to target. So that mock test is very important. And last one is read editorial, right? So when I say read editorials, right, so please subscribe for a paper called The Hindu or The Mint, right? The Mint is basically a business, like a paper related to business economics, and The Hindu, I feel, is a very neutral paper. So, and it's also well written, the articles in Hindu, right? So please read the editorials in the Hindu and the Mint, right? So what does this do, right? This increases your reading speed. So when I say this increases your reading speed, right? So say you read a certain sentence, the fastest speed you can, right? So when you read it at such a fast speed, you do not, pick up all the details from the sentence you read, right? So you open a book right in front of you, right? Read the first paragraph as fast as you can. So you will not be able to pick up certain points in the paragraph because you read it at that speed, right? So when you read regularly, one is just reading speed increases, and second is the amount of information that you are taking from a paragraph that you read at a particular speed also increases, right? So this is a tested method, and many people who I have spoken to also say that reading regularly helped them a lot in reading comprehension, right? So when I say reading comprehension, there are 24 questions, and that is a huge chunk of marks in this VARC section, right? So if you want to improve reading comprehension, please read editorials, right? Okay, so again, so these 2 reading editorials, Time VA book and Time RC books, are something that you should solve regularly, right? Every day. So say that every day you should solve, say, 2 RCs or 3 RCs, do 10 questions from para jumbles, para summary, odd man out, right? And so once you finish time material and reading editorials, you can move on to the Arun Sharma VARC book, right? And mock tests, you must give it regularly throughout the year. So at least 30 mock tests you need to give in order to get a good percentile in the VARC section if you do not speak English regularly and you think you are not good at English, right? So now that I've explained everything to you, let me tell you where I was when I was giving mock tests, right? So the first mock test I gave, I got 85 percentile in English, right? And this was sometime in June 2019. and towards the end I started touching 94 percentile, right? So from the transition from 85 percentile to 94 percentile, it was 30 tests. So I had to write 30 tests to transition from 85 to 94, and then in the actual CAT I got 97.56 percentile, right? Which was a 5% increase from the previous year, right? So this is how much time it takes for you to improve in English, right? So please keep working hard and make sure that you use all these materials effectively, right? And I am proof that you can improve considerably in English in a short period of time if you put in the effort, right? So you can't just say I don't speak English regularly, I'm bad at the section, and just let it go, right? So you can't do that, and you need to put in the hard work, sit, attempt verbal ability questions, read editorials every day, attempt mock tests, attempt reading comprehension questions. So these are something that you have to keep doing in order to succeed in this section, right? So I guess that's it, right? Please subscribe if you want more videos on the other sections, say LRDI and quantitative aptitude. So these are the resources I used. I'll put it in the description below. And I also made a video on how the IIM shortlist process works and a preparation guide for CAT 2020, right? So those two video links will also be in the description below. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.